Hello, and let's start with building the game screen. If you recall, the way we thought of the layout of the game screen is we're gonna have a button. The user will click on the Start Game button. The game will play a sound from the note files, and then the user will have options to click any of these buttons to provide the answer. In this particular video, we're going to start with the Start Game button and activate that. When the user click the Start Game, we set up a turn, and we'll see how we're going to do that structure and the use of the if statement and playing a random sound. And then we'll have other videos that continue this work. Our game so far has the initial game screen, which is empty, the stats screen, which is also empty, and the help screen, which we created before. It has some instructions, and it has the ability to listen to the different games, the different notes, and practice their sound. So let's go ahead and add the start game and see what we need to do in the back in the controller. So we'll bring in the utility area, and we need to add a button. And once you add the button in the attribute inspector, you can change the text on the button. So I'm going to call here Start Game. You can adjust the color of the text. I need something maybe darker. You can adjust the font. Layout, and you can also use an image instead of a text. So you can load an image to your project and use it for the Start Game button instead of direct text. So that's all what I need to do here. Actually, since we are building an interface, we want to also build the buttons for the different notes. So we can add all those buttons again the same way we did with the help screen. And that will help us set the structure of the game. Likewise, each one of the buttons, you can set the size of the font. You can lay them out the way you would like. You can set the color. You can add images if you want, but if you add image, notice what we did in the help screen is that we used the text on the button to be a representative of the file name, so that we automatically map what the button the user clicked with the name of the file that we need to play. If you end up using an image to on the button, you have to find another mechanism to map the file, the button to the file name. You can use a text and use an image, and I think the image will appear, but the text property will still have a value. You can also use this property called tag, which give you an ability to index each of the components with a particular index. So you can have the button and give it an index 0, 1, 2, 3, so that you know which button has been clicked. You can also, yeah, that's probably the different options you have. So now to connect the buttons to the controller, I have the view controller, which is the main controller for the screen. So since I'm selecting the game screen, click on the assistant editor, and it will split the screen with the, here it brought in the help view controller, so you can just switch to the view controller. I'm gonna make some room. The view controller currently empty. It only has the view did load and did receive memory warning, which comes from the template. So I'm gonna start by connecting the Start Game button to a function to start the game. So press the Control key, drag from the Start Game, anywhere inside the class but outside any other function. And we're going to connect as an action. And in this case, I don't need an argument, so I'll choose none for the argument, and which will make the type irrelevant because the type is the type of the argument if you choose to have an argument. I'm gonna call it the start game function. What this action connection will do, it will establish a connection between the button and a function, but will also create that function. If you already had a function in the controller that is connected to the interface builder action, you can connect directly to it without that interface. So here is the start game action, and then I'm going to leave the buttons for now. In the start game action, I need to do two things. I need to reset the number of turns, and I need to play the game. So I'm going to use another function. Since playing the game is a concept by itself, I'm going to include that in another function. So I'll go outside the start game function, so outside the start game function, and add another function, so keyword function, and I'm gonna call it play game, or you can say play sound. No arguments are needed, and the function is not gonna return anything, and then the function body. So what this function needs to do for now is to check if there are still turns, and then play a random sound or end the game. Then play a random sound or end the game. So to manage or keep track of the number of turns, we will need to create a variable, and I'm gonna make this variable with the scope of the entire class. We call it instance variable. So I'm going to create an instance variable, and its value will change. So I will use var, and then we'll say this is the turn counter. You can give it an initial value, or you can give it a type without initial value. I can say a turn counter int to force the type to be an int, and then I will initialize it to 0. So when the user click on start game, the first thing that you need to do is to reset that turn counter back to 0, because as the user go from one turn to the other, the turn counter will increase. So the first thing to start a new game is to set the turn counter to 0. Then once you set the turn counter to 0, you say I want to play the game. When you come to play the game, the first thing you want to do is to check, is the turn counter, did the turn counter reaches the maximum or not? So that then begs the question, what is the maximum? So let's define the maximum first. So I will define the maximum here, and I will use let because this is constant. It's not gonna change. And constant, sometimes we write the variable name or the identifier in full capital letters so that it is clear as you read through that this is a constant. And I will make it an integer and initialize it to 3. This way, anytime you want to change the maximum number of turns, you can come here in one place and change it. You don't have to go inside the code and change it. Better off actually is to put that as a configuration variable, and if you have some background in programming, you can put it in a file as a configuration variable and read the file in the view did load. This way, you don't have to recompile the code or retest your code just to change the maximum number of turns. Better off actually is to make it a setting variable that the user can do. So we add another function to the game called setting, And in the setting function, the user can change how many, the maximum number of turns. So we set the maximum number of turns and then check. In the overview, we introduce the if statement. So we'll say if, and in the if statement, we have to provide a condition, and then the body of the true statement, and then the keyword else, then the body of the false statement. So in the false, we'll say end game, and in the body of the true, if the condition is true, we'll say play a random sound. I'm going to take that comment out now. So what is the condition that I want to check? I want to check if the number of turns, if the turn counter, which is going to keep counting number of turns, if that turn counter has reached the maximum or not. So I can come here and say if turn counter, the maximum is 3. So the turn counter, is it going to start from 0? If we make it start from 0, then the first turn will be 0, the second will be 1, the third will be 2. So I can say if the turn counter is less than 3, less than the maximum turn, if the turn counter is less than the maximum turn, so this will be true. This logical expression will be true only if we have not reached 3. Once you reach 3, once the turn counter becomes 3, then 3 will not be less than 3, so this condition will evaluate to false, and then it will skip the part that plays the sound and go to the part that is responsible for ending the game. The second, perhaps a question in this regard is, so turn counter is going to reset to 0 when the game starts. Then in the play game, we're going to check if turn counter has more turns or have reached the maximum turns or not yet. So where are we going to increment the turn counter? So the turn counter should increment when we evaluate the user response. So when the play game plays a sound, the user will be presented with any of these buttons, the note buttons. When they click on the note button, the game should check the answer, increment the counter, and play another sound. So to do that, we need to connect these buttons with another function that will then check the answer and increment the counter. So if we select one of the buttons, or if I want to build the function myself and then connect the button to it, I will create a function and then maybe call this check answer. And I want the function to have one variable, so I will call this variable is going to be the button, because I want the button to come to me so I would know which button was clicked, similar to what we did in the help screen. So I will say that button clicked, and then I will give this the type UI button, and the function does not need to return anything, and I'll say this is the body of the function. For this function to be connected to these buttons in the user interface, I have to inject the IB action to the function like that. Now the function can be connected to one of those buttons. So if I come to the A button, I can then connect it to this action. So now the action on the button is connected to the action function in the controller. Then I can add another one, the third one, fourth, oops. So we'll do that for all of them. Make sure that you connect when the function is highlighted. Or you can do like we did with the other one. You don't have to do it the other way, like I did here. You can do it through the action wizard I just wanted to show you that you don't have to use the action wizard to show the function. So now I have all the buttons connected to the function. So what I do for this function is, first I'm going to need to check the answer, and then I need to update the turn counter and play another game. This actually should be play another turn, not game. So if I want to make this, this should, no, it plays the game. Play another turn, yes. So to update the turn counter, we'll say turn counter equal turn counter plus 1. So whatever value in turn counter, we add 1 to it. The turn counter plus 1, anytime you want to increment by 1, there's a shortcut operator. Instead of saying turn counter equal turn counter plus 1, you can simply say turn counter plus plus. The plus plus operator is the same as turn counter equal turn counter plus 1. It's exactly the same. So it's a shortcut or a shorthand operator. Then we need to play another turn. Now to play another turn, we do the same thing we did in the start game. We say play game. The problem by saying play game is that the sound will play immediately. We want to pause a little bit and allow the user to understand what's happening and adjust and see the result before you can increment the game one more time. So instead of saying play game, we can use a timer. So there's a class called the NSTimer, and in the NSTimer, we'll call a function called the schedule timer with time interval. That function allows you to set a time interval in seconds. So I'm going to say let's wait 3 seconds. Then you indicate the oh, this is not the one I wanted. There are different functions. So schedule time was time interval. The second one is the one I want, the one that has the target, not the invocation. So we want 3. The target is the object that will be notified. In this case, it's our current class. The selector is the name of the function that you want to call. In my case here, it's play game. And the user info, if you want to pass any information to the function, it doesn't take any information. And if you want to repeat that timer, I don't want to repeat that timer. It's just a one-time thing. So now I set up the entire structure of my game. The user, when they click the start game, it resets the turn counter. It plays the game, which it checks if the counter is there or not. Then it goes again, it increments, it goes again, it does another check, and keep doing that until the check is over and there's no more games to be played. There are no more turns in the game. So I will stop here, and then in the next video we will focus on loading the node files and playing a random sound within the turn.